Good morning everyone, and welcome to my vlog series, Creating Courier. I don't actually know what I'm gonna call it, but during this series I'll be showing each stage of creating a comic with you. So here we are. This is where I start. So as to this date, I've created 5 issues of Courier, 6 if you include the prologue chapter, and I've taken a little break to do 2 other projects in between issues, so I've got to sort of recollect all of the information, story elements, characters, my inspiration, the what I've sort of gone through in the entire story. So I've got to reread all my issues, which, you know, I don't actually do enough of, I think, because it's so easy to forget every aspect of your story, especially when you've evolved as a creator, and your characters have evolved and you've got new ideas, new characters, new perspectives. So yeah. At the moment, I'm going through all my files that I have. So a lot of them are character sketches. So at the moment, I'm kind of archiving what I don't need, and I'm collecting the images that I still feel relevant to the way I want my characters to look or be, or anything like that. So this is actually a little sketch I created for last issue, which was Geraldine, I should say. Jerry's her nickname, during the 1930s, 30s, and that's when she meets Cassandra, who is not really in the comic series a lot, but she's kind of like a mischievous character that is into Geraldine, and it's, I haven't really explored it in the comic because maybe I've been too afraid, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to go into that now. But this is, I wanted to establish more of this relationship in the last issue, because Cassandra is a character that is only really hinted at. Like, she debuts actually in the 3rd issue. So in the 3rd issue, I've got this character called Jed, who, I think he works in the building that Geraldine is living in, and he's like, oh, that girlfriend of yours came by, and she's like, oh, that'll be right. And so what she's actually done in the final scene of episode 3 is that Geraldine comes home to find that there's a letter for her, and you wonder what it is. So this is like a small part of the story that is there if the reader really looks for it, but it's not in your face. And then in issue 4, we kind of realize what happened. So I've got so many cause and effects happening throughout this that you really got to like pay attention. So we've got to sort of like jump to the future here, where Geraldine has oh wait, I missed a bit. Okay, so this is what happened before Geraldine found the letter. So Cassandra's came here, and she's sort of left a letter here, and she's taken a photo of her as well, which I could have made clearer, but you know, it's all learning. So she actually is asking where Geraldine is, because she's been away for a few days in Medina Town, and she's been stranded out there. But here Cassandra's actually decided, well, she's leaving. She's gonna join the war effort, the war, and become a nurse overseas, and leave everything for whatever reason that is, which I want to sort of express in this next final chapter of Courier. So this is Geraldine after she read the letter. She's obviously had a bit to drink, and she's not very happy about what was in the letter. So it's sort of suggesting that there was something between them, but it's not really evident. There. skips to Geraldine speaking to her best friend, and they're actually talking about Cassandra leaving, but it's sort of like an in conversation. When you're reading this, you wouldn't really get it. It's kind of what have I heard? Oh yeah, let's go to Graham. Anyway, it's sort of irrelevant. I wanted it to be kind of irrelevant, and I guess that was because I wasn't confident about expressing that in the story. But it could also be that I didn't really want it. I didn't want it to be a main element in the story, like a in your face. I wanted it to be sort of mysterious, and yeah, there if you went digging for it, you know. Let's find a scene where the agents get her. So this is what happened. So Cassandra has left, and she's like, I'm leaving, I'm joining the AANS, the nurses division, and she may never return. Anyway, so I really wanted to sort of explore more about that character within this chapter, and there's a lot of ideas for this final segment of Courier, and at the moment I'm kind of doing my head in because to be honest, it's too many different ideas that I want to put in the one issue, and you know, part of that is because I want to wrap up the original story and concept, and I want to leave a more developed story as well. So where do I start? So what I do is that I go through my characters. So this is like issue 5, and that's like the first part of the last issue of Courier. So I've got my characters there. So what I have to do now is I have to write down each character, what they want, what they've came up to, where the story is so far, and like what needs to be resolved, I guess, or just where they're at in the story, really. Oh my god, this is just so much to explain on camera. Oh. Like I really have sort of shown you like me trying to figure out my own brain, and it is a bit like this sometimes, but I'll just share with you like a few of my bits and pieces here. So this is what I did for last issue. This is what I call a character map, and this kind of shows how all the characters fit into place, especially for a comic issue that has so many characters in it that you know, they're all sort of, you gotta sort of coordinate them all. Oh my god, okay, let's just do this. So each comic issue is I've sort of discovered each comic issue has to sort of tell its own story within itself. So my write down comic issue. It has to tell its own story. Tell its own story within itself. So it doesn't matter if it's like a series of each issue. You've still, each segment has to tell a story alone without having the rest, I think, because if someone just finds your comic, they how they're going to read it if they don't already know what's happened prior to that. So you kind of got to, like, as I have in this comic, I've established that these are who the characters are, this is the story so far, etc., you know, blah blah blah. So that way someone can pick it up and hopefully get what it's about for what this is, this issue itself. But also for anyone that's reading your series, you know, you really want them to be refreshed on what's happened so far, I see it in all the manga novels. Anything that's ongoing, they let you know what's happened so far, so you can get a sense of what the hell is going on. So I got my characters. I'm gonna turn it over. I got Geraldine. So she's the main character. I've got to think about where we left off. Leave off. Oh, that's right. We left off there. This is sorry. I haven't prepared any of this. I don't know what to do. Okay, let's just stick with the characters first. Okay, let's think of this from a very, very, very basic character building thing. So Geraldine. Let's do it very quickly. Okay, so there's Geraldine, she's the main character, so I've got to kind of remember that, because I tend to go, I really like to get into the perspectives of other characters. Okay, this is, okay, that's character, so I'll also do this with a story element. How are we going there? Oh yeah, that's, you can see that. Okay, good. Geraldine's the main character. The story, we've got the 1940s. But the actual final chapter I'm going to do is actually 1942. And I think that's just before the fall of Singapore. This is important to the story. Very important, because Cassandra, she's a minor character, but I guess she's a bit more important than what I give her credit for. And it's important to draw characters just like this and not really care so much about what you're doing, because you're thinking of the idea of the character, you're not really thinking about being perfect or anything. Yeah, there's a hair going again. I haven't drawn her a lot either, because she's not really in it. She's just that kind of obnoxious, grumpy, vixen kind of character. I'll draw a bit. Just checking you can see that on the blah blah. Yeah, okay. This is important because this character has just joined the war, and she's gonna. There's spoilers in this, so you know, hopefully you haven't already read this before watching this. She's gonna be in Singapore during the siege of Singapore, and the Japanese take Singapore pretty much. And that's important to the story because she gets captured or killed or something like that. But you don't find that out in the story. But it's good to know where your characters are, even if they're not actually present in the story. Because if you want to like extend that later or think about, I don't know, just the timelines of characters, I think it's nice to give them some reality and give them sort of you know, some accountability. So we've got the 1940s, it's set in 1942, so it's during the middle of the war. So So middle of Second World War. Geraldine's main character. She has a connection with the thylacine. This guy. The Tasmanian tiger. And if you read back, this has been established in the prologue chapter. So the reason why Geraldine is has this connection with the thylacine is because she used to always go there with her father, and they would visit them, and during this time, this is like a flashback. This is Geraldine when she's younger. This is set during 1910, or just before, just during the beginning of the First World War. So no one had time to really care about Tasmanian tigers then, but Walter, Geraldine's father, knew that they were in trouble. And the zookeeper, Lady Roberts, she was absolutely obsessed with her tigers, and she was probably the only one that could sort of help them, I guess. She's actually based off the original zoo founder, someone called Roberts, and I called her Lady Roberts for two reasons. One of the reasons being that I didn't want to like use a real name, and the second reason is that Lady Roberts is kind of more characteristic of who she is, because she's an eccentric socialite. She's crazy. She loves her animals, her birds. She loves her birds, and she loves the tigers, and she wants to save them. But Walter is a free spirit. He realizes, he sees animals for what they really want and need, and even though the Tasmanian tiger is going to probably go extinct, he wants these animals to be free. So in this scene, he frees them, and they all escape. And that's the end of the prologue. But I'm sort of like I'm sort of establishing that Geraldine was probably an orphan because her mother isn't there. So I've sort of like expressed that. And I'm also sort of showing that tigers were always like an important part of her life. They remind her of her father, because after that happens, Walter actually has to go fight in the war and he dies. So she becomes an orphan, and the tigers are kind of all that remain for her. So after that, she's got this fascination with the tiger, and it's set during a time that the last known tiger, so write this down. Last known tiger passed away in 1936. In 1936. So I'm sort of referencing all these story ideas to actual real historical events, you know. Yeah. So she's got this connection with the Tasmanian tiger. She is a photographer because her father was. So that's kind of like what she's sort of inherited off her father, you know, like. So that's like an ode to family. These are sort of connected, these ideas, because he took photos of the tiger as well. What else is she? So I'm sort of like here, I'm showing you how I kind of, every time I create a new episode, I have to think of each character, and I try and think about as much of them as possible. She's fashionesque. I know that's not a real word, but whatever. She is, yeah, so, oh yeah. And so here I also think about who I've referenced her off. So for Geraldine, I just typed in, I knew I was going to have it set in the 1940s, so I typed in famous, I was trying here, famous film stars, female, obviously. And I found this chick that I didn't really know about called Katharine Hepburn. And she's not Audrey Hepburn because everyone gets them mixed up. But she was exactly what I wanted for Geraldine. So, and I've always sort of fallen back to her, Katharine Hepburn. And it turns out that she's actually quite, not a feminist, but she's independent. I hate the word feminist because people think it's like women trying to take over. It's not. It's equality. But she was definitely that. She was a strong, goofy, free-spirited is the word I want. Spirited woman. And she really was smart. I was just watching her in Stage Door, and that was with Ginger Rogers, and I'm like, wow. And I watched a few documentaries about her, and she was so savvy because there was a lot of negative write-ups on this woman for being so headstrong and fighting for her rights. And she would have gone down the sink if she wasn't smart business-wise, because she bought the rights to certain films so she could ensure that next time they do it, she has to star in it. She was a very smart woman. So Katharine Hepburn is very, 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 very key to Geraldine Barker, and it happened just as if it was meant to be. Yeah. So I think about actresses or the real life people that I can put into the character I'm creating or trying to find, and it's uncanny how this happens. It really works for me. Especially because she's of that era. She's just, where's the photo of her? I've got everything out now. I'm going to show you. My place is a mess. Here's my inspiration for Geraldine. Bloody hell. Okay, I can't find it right now. Okay. But I'll just show you this. This is kind of what I do. Oh, this is jumping all over the place. For example, Geraldine's camera. Like I have, I don't print off things anymore, and I kind of wish I did because they're more. I'm a tactile person. I create comics. I print my comics, so I really like getting hold of what I'm working with here. So this is actually her camera model that she uses, just so I can see what it looks like up close. You know, I really should have just bought the actual camera. See, I found that actually, and that's like almost looks exactly like Geraldine. This is her car. This car is, it's actually a Japanese model, and I'm very excited. I've got to show you this now. And I got like, okay, I've searched. This is the only reference I could find of this exact model. So I've actually found cars that are like it that I can reference of, but I have to sort of guess a little bit. And some of these cars are actually later. That's a 1939 model. Some of these are later models. Like that one is a later car. I'm no expert, but. And a lot of these cars are actually American, so that the wheel's on the wrong side, so you've got to reverse it in your head. It's been very good. That's me sketching the cars. It's been very good exercise for me. That's one of the earlier sketches of Geraldine. I forgot I had that, and see how different she looks. I had her with sort of more modest features. She's not like in your face. She's got sort of her cap's a bit cuter, and she's more like she's more girly girl there. She's not like you know, woman. Like, so that's that. So I have this for also for Katharine Hepburn, and I have them for everything. Like, this is a lot of these printouts were done for the first and second issue. And since then I sort of was like, I can't waste paper. Oh, that's Hugh Jackman. I used to print off everything I wanted to reference, and I don't do it anymore. These are like references for exterior of houses, shots of Hobart and Tasmania during the 1940s. They were hard to find. There's not many, but I printed them out just for the feel, you know. Anyway, these are the kind of things that you should get other people to do if you're working in a big production. Get the editor or the production designer or whatever to do it. These are more shots of just what people would wear around the office. Oh my god, look at that. So that's kind of exactly what people did back then. And even like, you know, the stance. You would never see any girl pose for you like that. And also, like, people had very good posture back in the 1940s because people weren't on their iPhones. People had amazing posture. Everyone had amazing posture. It's interesting, isn't it? So yeah, I printed out all these references. And I just found something incredible the other day. I'm so glad I went to the library. So yeah, during this stage, I like to sort of find as many references as possible to really get me into the story. I just found this. You ready for it? Ta-da! This is amazing because that's so much like her car, and this is a Japanese woman on a car. And I thought it was so cute how she's just standing there. But she's a lot shorter than Geraldine. Geraldine's actually quite tall for the 1940s as well. So if Geraldine was to do that pose, she'd be like, blurp. But it might look cool, you know. So I'm just so excited I found this shot because it's such a nice perspective and it's fun, and I was just so happy to find it.